Welcome to a tale that begins where the sea meets the sky, shrouded in mystery and whispered legends. Imagine this: a misty morning, a fisherman named Carter casting his nets, and then an eerie shape emerging from the horizon. A ship long lost, presumed gone forever, now silently reappearing after 2 decades. What secrets lie within its rusted walls? What stories does it hold or hide? As you listen, picture yourself aboard that vessel, stepping into a world frozen in time, where every shadow holds a clue and every creak of the deck tells a story. This is more than just a discovery, it's an unraveling of something extraordinary. So settle in, let your imagination drift with the tides, and prepare to uncover what Carter found on that fateful morning, because some mysteries are meant to be explored, even if they come with a price. Early one misty morning, as Carter cast his nets off the coast, he spotted an eerily familiar shape looming in the distance. A boat long whispered about in local legends had mysteriously reappeared after vanishing 2 decades ago. Driven by a blend of fear and curiosity, Carter approached, unaware of the discovery that awaited him. As he peered inside the abandoned vessel, his face turned ghostly white, unable to believe what lay before his eyes. Carter had first told himself, "No, this can't be," at refusing to believe that the ship had. Simply reappeared after 20 years, however. As he slowly approached it, it became clear that he was wrong. As he was getting closer and closer to the ship, he decided he was going to board it. He had to. Now that he had found it, he couldn't just leave without taking a look inside. He had thought about calling the police first, but they would tell him to share the ship's location and instruct him not to go near it. And he didn't like that idea. Later, however, he would come to regret this decision. Carter thought that since he had found the ship, he should also be the first one to look inside. He already imagined in the newspaper headline, "Local fisherman makes stunning discovery," and thought about how this would benefit his business. He had no idea what was waiting for him in there. Carter had so many questions. What had happened to this ship 20 years ago? Why had no one been able to find it until now, and he just randomly bumped into it? How was that even possible? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. He wondered if he would find any answers, but the idea itself that he was about to explore a missing ship was exciting enough for him. He searched for the best spot to anchor his boat, and after he had almost circled the ship, he finally spotted a ladder. This was it. He looked up and he was kind of intimidated by how large the ship was, but he wasn't going to let this scare him. Carter took a deep breath and he pulled himself up onto the next step of the ladder. He carefully made his way up, still unaware of the absolute horror he was about to discover inside. He had heard so many horrible stories about what could have happened to it and its key RW, and well, Carter certainly loved a mystery. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes. He let out a deep sigh as he finally made it over the railing of the ship and climbed onto the deck. Where would he look first? He walked around a bit and tried to open the first door that he walked past. He held his breath as he pushed the handle, but the door wouldn't budge. It was locked. Carter found this strange, but it didn't bother him at all. The ship was huge, and he was actually looking forward to exploring it. However, soon his excitement would turn into horror. Carter walked onto the next door, and he smiled when this one did open. He walked in and slid his hand along the wall, looking for a light switch. He flipped the switch a couple of times, but to his disappointment, nothing happened. "Well, it would have been weirder if it did work, I guess," he whispered as he looked around the space he found himself in now. Carter looked around the dark room, his eyes scanning over the mundane objects, chairs, tables, and boxes. Everything seemed untouched by time, yet eerily normal. It was just a room full of old furniture and forgotten supplies. Realizing the room was merely a storage space, he felt a hint of disappointment clouding his excitement. The mystery of the long-lost ship seemed to be fading with each ordinary discovery. Carter sighed, closing his eyes for a moment, before deciding to leave the room. There was nothing here worth his curiosity. Deciding there was nothing of interest here, he left the room to continue his exploration elsewhere on the ship. His steps echoed through the empty corridors as he moved from one room to the next, opening doors and peeking inside, each revealing more mundane scenes. Nothing so far hinted at the ship's mysterious past. Carter opened several more doors on this level of the ship, each revealing nothing more than the last. Each room seemed to whisper of a lifelong pause, waiting to resume or to be discovered. Little did he know that the excitement was yet to come, hidden away from his current path. While investigating another unremarkable room, Carter was startled by a metallic screeching noise from outside. It pierced the silence abruptly, making him jump. His heart raced as he pondered the possibility of another person's presence on the ship with him. He gripped the door handle tightly, his other hand, and balled into a fist at his side. Carter took a deep breath, preparing to face whatever was outside that had disturbed the eerie calm of the ship. With cautious steps, Carter moved toward the door, peering outside, expecting to confront whoever or whatever made the noise. His footsteps echoed on the metal floors as he made his way up to the first floor where the guest suites were located, ready for more discoveries. Feeling an uneasy atmosphere, Carter ascended to the first floor where the guest suites were located. He paused, took a breath, and pushed forward. His curiosity doctored, driving him deeper into the forgotten lives aboard the vessel. Upon opening a sewed door, Carter gasped at the sight. The first real indication that people had once lived here, the room looked as if it had been left in a rush. A coffee cup on a side table, a book laid open face down. As he wandered through the hallways, his mind buzzed with questions about their sudden disappearance. What could compel an entire ship's company to leave like this? He pondered. What could have caused such a hurried escape? Where these people had gone, and what had become of them. Upon entering a room on the next floor, Carter was met with a sight that drained the color from his face. The room was unlike the others, its contents unsettlingly preserved. A tableau of personal effects lay scattered, as if their owners might return at any moment to claim them. Carter's eyes widened in shock, his breath catching in his throat. For a moment, he stood frozen, hand clamped over his mouth to stifle a scream. His heart pounding fiercely, he burst onto the deck. Gasping for air, his plan to leave abruptly thwarted when he saw his boat was no longer there. Gasping for air on the deck, Carter's plan to leave was thwarted when he saw his boat was no longer there. The rope he had tied lay limp on the dock, the end frayed as if cut. Panic set in as he realized the implication. Someone else must be on the ship with him. Terrified and alone, he lamented his decision to explore the ship. Now trapped with no apparent escape, he staggered back from the edge, his mind reeling from fear. Every sound was a potential threat, every shadow a hiding place for this unseen other. Desperate for a way off the ship, Carter resolved to seek out a means of communicating or another exit strategy. His survival instincts kicking into overdrive, he hurried through the corridors, his eyes scanning for anything that resembled a radio room or lifeboats. Each empty room he passed seemed to taunt him with its silence. With determination, he headed towards the upper deck, hoping the captain's quarters might hold a working radio, the captain's hut, a beacon of hope. For communication was Carter's next destination, until a previously locked door caught his eye. Now inexplicably, it stood slightly ajar. Carter paused his, and hovering over the handle, curiosity piqued despite the foreboding feeling churning in his gut. With a cautious push, he opened it further, peering into the shadowy room beyond. The musty smell of old paper and rusted metal wafted it out, beckoning him to step inside. As Carter peered inside, ready to turn back, an unexpected event quickly trapped him. Within the mysterious room, the door slammed shut with a resounding thud, the sound echoing ominously in the cramped space. He rushed to the door, tugging at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Carr's heart raced as he realized the gravity of his situation. Now locked inside with no obvious way out, a chill crept up his spine, and he backed away slowly, scanning the dimly lit room for any other sign of life. His voice bounced off the metal walls, returning to him as if to mock his desperate cries, resigning to his fate. Carter sought to calm his nerves and look for another way out. Realizing he was trapped in the laundry room, his eyes scanned the room, desperate for an exit, until he spotted another door, a glimmer of hope in his dire situation. This door was smaller, almost hidden behind a large rusty washing machine. He reached for the handle, his hands trembling with the possibility of freedom. Carter approached the door, praying it would open and offer him an escape from his nightmare. He turned the handle slowly, his breath held. In anticipation, the door creaked open, revealing a narrow passage dimly lit by the flickering light of an old bulb. Relief washed over him as the door led to the service corridor, a path potentially leading to salvation. Relief washed over him as the door led to the service corridor, a path potentially leading to salvation. The narrow, poorly lit hallway stretched before him, its walls lined with pipes and cables. Despite its gloom, it promised a way out, and Carter wasted no time. He started down the corridor, his footsteps echoing off the metal floors, the light at the end growing brighter with each step. Ignoring the eeriness of the deserted corridor, Carter ran, driven by the desire to escape and forget the horror he encountered. His breath came in short, sharp bursts as he sped past closed doors and abandoned service carts. Each shadow seemed to dance, making his heart pound harder, but he pushed on, determined to find a way off this cursed ship. The image of what he believed was a dead body in the guest suite haunted him, erasing any desire for adventure. Replaced by a need for survival, as he ran, the ghastly sight replayed in his mind over and over, urging him to move faster, to escape the confines of the ship and the nightmares it held. His only focus now was finding a way off the ship. His mind racing with fear and desperation, Carter's eyes darted to every exit sign, every hatch that might lead to the upper decks, or better yet, to a lifeboat. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, hunted even, as if the ship itself resented his presence. Exhausted and defeated, Carter collapsed, allowing himself a moment of despair, convinced his adventure had turned into a nightmare. He slid down against a cold metal wall, his head in his hands, breathing heavily as he caught his breath. The overwhelming silence of the ship pressed in on him. Just as he began to lose hope, a sudden sound of a door and the glimpse of a figure through the sunlight snapped Carter back to reality. The sudden sound of a door and the glimpse of a figure through the sunlight snapped Carter back to reality. He jerked upright, his eyes wide as he spotted the silhouette of man in the bright light. Carter's heart raced, and he scrambled to his feet, his back pressed against the cold metal wall, ready for whatever was coming. Carter braced for the worst and screamed, "No, please don't hurt me. I won't tell anyone." Believing the figure to be his end, his voice echoed down the corridor, a desperate plea filled with terror. He cowered, his arms raised protectively, eyes squeezed shut, waiting for the inevitable. Carter's fear turned to astonishment as the figure who he thought had been lying in bed, dead and naked in the suite, revealed himself to be very much alive. The man chuckled, a deep and hearty sound that filled the corridor as he stepped into the light, fully dressed and entirely harmless. Relief and confusion washed over him as the figure introduced themselves, dismantling Carter's worst fears with a simple explanation. He had just been taking a nap. Carter's knees nearly buckled with relief as the tension drained from his body. The absurdity of the situation briefly overwhelmed him, and he let out a shaky laugh. The man shared the ship's fate. A storm had left them lost and disconnected from the world, unable to return. As he recounted the events that led to the abandonment of the ship, Carter listened intently, his fear replaced by fascination. He leaned in, eager to hear more about this unexpected survivor's tale of isolation and endurance. Laughter replaced fear as the misunderstanding was cleared, and Carter listened intently to the tale of survival and secrecy. Brandon, with a smile, began recounting the days that turned into years. He gestured around the ship as he spoke, each area holding a part of their story. The air around them filled with a history that was both improbable and awe-inspiring. As Carter absorbed every word, the man, Brandon, explained the ship had gotten lost in a storm, and its communication system had broken down. Unable to call for help, the passengers and crew had to make a crucial decision. Brandon leaned against a rail, his eyes distant as he described the towering waves and howling winds that had sealed their fate. The passengers had decided to live in isolation as they had enough food on board, and they did not want to return home yet. Carter blinked in surprise, his mind struggling to imagine choosing such a life. Brandon walked him through the ship, showing storerooms still stocked with provisions, their longevity a testament to the group's determination to remain cut off from the world. As some of the passengers decided to leave the ship, they still promised to keep their secret and not tell anyone about their secret lives on the ship. Brandon's voice grew soft as he spoke of friends departing one by one, each leaving a void behind, yet they had all kept their promise, not a word of their story reaching the outside world until now. Brandon had been the last one left on the ship, and now it was time for him to leave as well. He gazed at the sea through a porthole, his expression a mixture of relief and melancholy. "It's time to end this chapter," he said, turning to Carter. His readiness to share their story marked the end of their isolation and the beginning of a new chapter. Brandon's readiness to share their story marked the end of their isolation and the beginning of a new chapter. Together, they prepared the ship for one last voyage, a return to the world they had left behind. Brandon fetched Carter's boat, now a symbol of their forthcoming reintegration, and together they set course for the shore, their spirits buoyed by a sense of completion and new beginnings. Together they returned to shore after Brandon returned Carter's boat to him, their tales soon capturing the imagination and attention of the wider world. As they stepped onto solid ground, the fresh sea breeze was no longer a reminder of isolation, but of freedom. They shared their story with every listening ear, the tale spreading like wildfire, igniting discussions and curiosity far and wide. The story of survival and secrecy aboard the ship became a sensation, thrusting Carter and Brandon into unexpected fame. Reporters and onlookers gathered, hanging on to every word of their harrowing experience. As their faces appeared across media outlets, they became symbols of resilience and adventure, their lives forever changed by their unexpected notoriety. The mysterious ship, once a legend, now stood as a testament to human resilience and the power of community. As it was anchored for the last time, people from near and far came to see the vessel that had housed a unique tale of survival. The ship, a silent witness to the strength and unity of its accidental community, became a landmark of human spirit and endurance. As Carter and Brandon navigated their newfound fame, they reflected on the adventure that had brought them together, forever linked by their shared experience. They often found themselves recounting the days aboard the ship, each memory a building block in their bond. Together, they looked forward to whatever life might bring next, knowing they had a story worth telling and a friendship that could withstand even the strangest trials.